It's just Matt here, just doing another little midweek devotional. I'm in my kind of office slash playroom in my home. I just wanted to share something with you guys. I had my cup of coffee to get me in a good mood. It even says best dad on it, so you can't argue. It's right there. Yeah, so I guess I'm just the best dad. But no, uh, today I just really wanted to share a devotional on something I guess I've been really thinking of lately, especially with Easter and all the stuff that we celebrated. And I just want to read a passage, and then I just want to, unpack that passage a little bit more and just kind of share with you some of the things I've been thinking of and a term you might not be familiar with. So, let's read. So I'm going to read from Matthew 26. Oh, no, not 26. Gosh, I got that wrong. Way to go, me. Matthew 27. And it's verses 62 to 66. And it's a really good passage. If you have a Bible on you, feel free to open it up. If you have your phone and want to do the Bible app, you can do that. I'm reading from the CSB version, so the Christian Standard version. So let's see what it says. And this is what it says. And it's talking about after Jesus' death. Because we all know Jesus dies on the cross. So after he dies and he's buried in the Gospel of Matthew, the next day, we read of this encounter that happens between Pilate and the Pharisees. So I just want to read this with you guys. And it says this: "The next day, which followed the preparation day, the chief priests and the Pharisees gathered before Pilate and said, 'Sir, we remember that while this deceiver was still alive, he said, "After 3 days I will rise again." So give orders that the tomb be made secure until the third day. Otherwise his disciples may come, steal him, and tell the people he has been raised from the dead. And the last deception will be worse than the first.' 'You have a guard of soldiers,' Pilate told them. 'Go and make it as secure as you know how.' They went and secured the tomb by setting a seal on the stone and placing the guard." So I just want to stop there because I think that's really interesting to me. Because we all know this story that they were a bit worried about this whole hide and seek thing with Jesus's body, and the Pharisees were worried about that because Jesus said he'd die and rise again. So they're trying to make sure none of that happens. But what I find interesting about that is that oftentimes at Easter, when we focus on the death and resurrection of Jesus, we kind of skip that in-between period. We don't really focus on that. We don't really talk about that. We kind of, like Good Friday comes, we focus on the death. Jesus dies on the cross, and reflect on that, give a gospel account of that, which is all great. And then comes Easter, and usually we give an account on the resurrection. But never do we do on this in-between period. This period in between the death and resurrection, we don't really focus on it, especially in a lot of Western churches. We just seem to not really focus on it at all. We don't mention it around this time. We just kind of focus on the death and the resurrection. And I just kind of want to take a moment to really look at the resurrection and look at this crack in time between Christ's death and his resurrection. Because there's a term that goes with this. So this term, you're Catholic or Eastern Orthodoxy, you would have heard this term more regularly, but it's called the Harrowing of Hell. And that's what they kind of use to talk about this in-between time. So the Harrowing of Hell, I don't know if you're familiar with the harrowing, you might not know the word, but it's a medieval English word, and it's basically describing plunder and ravaging during war times, and kind of what would happen in these times of total victory. So with the title, it's kind of telling us of this total victory that Jesus has, this time in between where Jesus goes down into hell. And this isn't really a foreign concept for anyone who knows the Apostles' Creed. It talks about Jesus descending into hell. And too often we don't really reflect on what that means. But I really like this term, the harrowing of hell. And I really wish in our churches that it would be something that we would focus on, because it really is quite beautiful to, we know Jesus went down, and we know that when Jesus was resurrected, the prophets and people of old, it tells us in the Gospels, were raised as well. But we don't focus on this undoing of hell. And I just think it's quite fascinating. The term that was used for it, this whole idea of, harrowing of hell, it's talking about plundering war times, a time of total victory. So, and there's paintings that you can, if you want to type harrowing of hell in on your computer and Google it, you can find countless images. And it's a really prominent idea in Eastern Orthodoxy and in Catholic churches. And I really like this idea, and I think it's something we miss out on, and we miss out on reflecting on. Really reflecting on this crack in time between the death and resurrection. When Jesus, and we have the Apostles' Creed that everyone know, and we would all know the idea of Jesus descending into hell. And we sometimes talk and we'll reflect on how he got the keys of life and all that stuff, which is all true. But I just find it so beautiful, this idea of Jesus undoing hell, going down there and plundering it, this total victory. And this whole idea of Jesus descending and having this total victory, having this total plundering. Have we ever sat in thought and reflected on what that really means? And it's something I've been reflecting on lately, because if this is, I believe this happened. And if we believe this happens as a church, what does that mean for hell? What happened when Jesus descended and got the keys of life and had this undoing of hell? Would hell ever be the same? And also, with this undoing of hell, for us as a human species, one of the biggest things we fear is often our death. We spend a large portion of our life trying to eat healthy, trying to do all this stuff to live longer. And that's all good. And I do a lot of that. I want to live for a long time. So I'm hoping I'm here around making YouTube videos and stuff way in the future. But have we ever thought about how much fear and how much stuff we put into this whole idea of death? And then this harrowing of hell concept, this undoing of hell, this undoing of death. Kind of this idea that there's this divine victory and conquering over hell and death. And if we really sit and rest in that, how much more peace can we find? How much more freedom can we find? How much more can we enjoy life? Enjoy the moment. And I think as a church, that's something we need to do right now. Something we need to reflect on. Because sitting in self-isolation, I don't know about anyone else, but not getting to go out as much, not getting to see friends, it makes your mind sometimes think a lot more. Unless you're not like me, you might be able to zone out, but I try, but it doesn't work the best. My mind just kind of keeps ticking over and over and over and over. And with this stuff going on, it kind of brings a human fear of death to the front of our mind, because there's so much pain and heartache going on. And I think right now it's a perfect time for us to reflect on this term, the harrowing of hell. To look at pictures at it, to sit with God in this space, unpacking what this means. Theologians talk about this undoing of hell and this undoing of death and everything we fear. What kind of impact would that have on us right now in this season if we reflected in that? If we grabbed on to that? How much more peace will we be able to bring into the world? So I want to encourage you to reflect on this term. Reflect on this undoing of hell. take a moment and instead of letting it just be a passing comment in the Apostles' Creed or, a quick comment about how Jesus descended into hell and got the keys of life, I want us to take a step back and let's reflect on this harrowing of hell, this complete and total divine victory, this undoing of hell and death. And reflect on that moment. Reflect on what it means for us now in the present, the peace we can find now in the present, and what it means for us as we continue to live out what it means to be Christians. So I really want to encourage you, church, to read that passage in Matthew that I shared. Really reflect on what happened in that crack in time and this whole idea of harrowing of hell. And I really just want to close this video off in prayer. So, God, I thank you for who you are. I thank you for your love. I thank you for your grace. And I thank you for your harrowing of hell, the undoing of hell and death. And I pray that you'll just help us as a church, as followers of Christ, to reflect on this term, to see what it means for us, to reflect on that crack in time between the death and resurrection. Instead of just making off the, 2-sentence, flow-ons from it about you getting the keys of life or the Apostle Creed about you descending into hell, to stop and reflect on it. To give up time for this concept of the harrowing of hell, to really reflect on what this means for us now in the present and what it means for us to live out what you've called us to live out, to be Christ followers. And I thank you for who you are, God, and I thank you for anyone watching this. And I just love you, and in your amazing, matchless name, amen. Thank y'all, and I hope you are having a blessed day. And may God's grace and peace be with you. See y'all.